Chapter 1, Rimuru wanders through the dimensions. We see a beautiful young girl with pale skin, slim figure, and small appearance traversing dimensions in space. She has bright blue-silver hair that seems to reflect light despite the darkness of the void that surrounds her. Her eyes are the color of sweet honey and amber combined. You can see the raw power radiating from them, which makes them glow. In raw power, the person is wearing only a white t-shirt and black loose pants. Rimuru positioned herself comfortably, wanting to sleep on nothingness and slumbering about an interesting adventure. How did she end up here? Well, let's start from the beginning. Having already evolved to the point where her power is already too great to rule her nation, Rimuru decided to leave Tempest to her successors and went off, looking for interesting dimensions among the multiverse. She had already forgotten most of her life and adventures in Tempest. Unfortunately, it turns out that even with her vast memory, which was supposed to be infinite, Rimuru still couldn't remember many things from her youth. She couldn't even remember how she came to be for some reason. Several thousand years ago she had still heard the voices of a person who called himself the Great Sage, or Seal, Raphael, and so on. By now, however, the voice had fallen silent and didn't seem to speak again. She also couldn't remember anyone's face, which annoyed her quite a bit to the point that she accidentally destroyed a neighboring planet. She hasn't been able to find any interesting things to do for. Unfortunately, she can't remember since when. About 120,000 years ago she left Tempest, she guessed. From what young girl still remembers? The truth is, Rimuru herself doesn't know how old she is, though age doesn't matter much when you're immortal in every possible way. Tempest, she said aloud, more to herself with a slight frown, knowing that no one would hear her in the void anyway. All the while the beautiful girl repeated the word Tempest. But what exactly was Tempest? Wait, it was a nation, right? That's all she recalls. In any case, Rimuru herself didn't know exactly where her origin began. Traversing the constellations was all she had done for the previous 1,000 years. Watching the beautiful sights and starbursts gave her some entertainment. She even has tried to create a new planet similar to Earth and create life on it naturally, but unfortunately she didn't succeed. Clearly Mother Nature was not going to cooperate with her, she thought at the time. But when beautiful girl finally managed to see the development of the civilization she had originated, suddenly some aliens from another planet invaded it and destroyed all the work she had put in. The only thing the Monster Queen did then was to watch, while her planet was literally blown up in all directions by some huge metal ball with lasers. Don't get her wrong, Rimuru by no means wanted the civilization of the created planet and the life on it to be devastated by evil forces. As the stated situation had been occurring back then, Rimuru stared at the scene of the cataclysm with sadness in her amber eyes. However, our blue-haired beauty realized that interference would result in many consequences that would arrive over time. She had already learned that many times before. Once as she created her first planet with civilization, saving it from oppression contributed to its downfall or many negatives that then grew. The beings on the planet began to believe, they began to worship her as a god who would protect them from all evil. This was bad, it hindered their evolution since they still relied on her all the time when attacks occurred again. With her previous interference, Rimuru only wanted to push them in a good direction, not change their entire structure of being. Nor could Rimuru hate the invaders just because they attacked a planet she had created. They too had a right to evolve. Since then, Rimuru has not intervened in the conflicts and developments of the universe. It can be compared to a ghost just watching the living, while the creatures had no idea they were being observed by the most powerful being in the universe. However, she began to feel bored. The monotony of the days came with the passage of time, and the amber-eyed beauty knew that eventually a paucity of interest would give a sign. And so Rimuru worked in boardroom, until she discovered to her surprise that there was a special connection between dimensions other than just hers. When this message processed in her brain, she immediately felt an inflow of positive energy called happiness, and Rimuru left everything behind, moving on. The girl visited several planets there, some of which were full of evil creatures and on some of which normal people lived. After her travels, the Queen of Monsters still maintained her status as the strongest, as she killed the strongest evil creatures she encountered. Whether it was an evil god or Satan, unfortunately she felt no difference when fighting any of them. Everything was so effortless for her. She opened her eyes slowly as she has traversed another universe through the portal, suddenly feeling a powerful presence. She flew past a rather interesting planet, from where a mysterious power different than usual was coming from. It wasn't magic, however, an energy quite similar to it, maybe spiritual or some kind of life energy, she thought, as if it had a similar sensation to magic, but a completely different structure. Then Rimuru saw two beings dueling in space, far away from the planet, which caught her interest as her amber eyes analyzed everything. One of them looked pretty old and had a long beard and brownish-gray short hair, with two distinctive parts that were similar to horns and strange red eyes on his forehead. He wore a long old but elegant white coat with a high collar that had strange symbols implanted on it. A serious face while he fought his opponent as if the fate of the world depended on it. The second looked younger and had long gray hair and a completely pale short cut. Unlike the first, this one had horns much larger and longer. He had a similar elegant but old coat, but unlike his opponent, this one had a strange symbol with a star-like painting and a black outline. An ominous aura surrounded him, and Rimuru felt the same radiant power from the two as from the planet, but several hundred times greater. Something flashed in her memory that she associated a strange symbol on the second person's back. You cannot protect this planet forever, Hago. The Otsutsuki clan has given clear orders for your execution for killing Princess Kaguya. Otsutsuki no Denitsu, Dragon of Vengeance. He shouted, then put his hands to his mouth and a strange dragon-like creature was released with immense power. You could feel its immense power of the attack even from a very long distance. I only stopped the madness my mother wanted to bring upon this world. The elder raised his staff as another energy formed a shield. I will stop the Otsutsuki clan from destroying everything. I won't let you plant the fruit of the divine tree again. A stupid old man who knows nothing? I must achieve my godhood. The two powers collided and there was a huge explosion that could be heard across the galaxy. If you looked from a distance, it looked like a starburst. Truthfully, Rimuru didn't even blink when the light erupted on all sides and continued to observe everything with interest and an unchanged expression on her face. No one seems to have noticed her presence yet. Finally, the explosion died down and Rimuru could see that the older man had sadly lost and was coughing up blood from his mouth. No, I can't let you go. Ho destroy dash. The older man couldn't even finish because the opponent already held him by the throat and began to tighten his grip with evil smirk present on his face. You old fool, did you think you could rival the real Otsutsuki in power? Laughable. Ah. Rimuru clicked her fingers as if she remembered something. A similar figure as she traveled between dimensions and explored pooped in her mind. He introduced himself as a member of some Otsutsuki clan too and said how magnificent he was. Apparently this whole clan had a rather large ego, she thought. The Queen of Monsters encountered him when he was trying to plant some suspicious fruit on one of the planets she was monitoring. The young girl didn't like the newcomer's evil intentions then, so she wiped floor with him. Ehehe, at least that's how she recalled it. However, she saw the elderly man was about to die. Rimuru personally disliked violence, so she decided to step in. Hago. Otsutsuki tried with all his might to stop the invading Otsutsuki from bringing an end to the world in which Hago had developed ninchu, a beautiful art of shinobi who used it. He could not defend the planet, however, when another reincarnation of his sons was about to be born once again, he felt so powerless. He even took physical form for a while to at least manage to repel the invader, but all his work was for nothing. There was nothing he could do. To make matters worse, the situation got even graver, and Hago himself overestimated his abilities and was at the mercy of the other Otsutsuki, who was about to take his life, and then Hago could never return. Apparently, the Otsutsuki clan learned of his mother's death and ordered his execution. Huh? So it will end like this. The way of the ninja will also fade away, and the shinobi world will be destroyed. What? Have nothing left to say? Last words? You disgust me. Ugh. The sage of the six paths once again tried to review the mistakes of his miserable life and look for where he had made them. The shinobi world itself is not to blame. Hago knew they were the ones who entered their planet, and it was through the Otsutsuki clan that humans would be exterminated. His opponent looked irritated by his lack of intention to talk and took drastic steps, tightening his grip over throat. Fine. I will end your pathetic life for you, Hago. You don't even deserve our clan's name. There it is, this moment, his permanent death. But it never came. Ack. A sound like someone had been punched in the gut filled the empty void. The old sage opened his eyes, which widened after a moment. His opponent Atsutsuki was sent flying at the speed of sound. The beautiful figure of a young girl suddenly revealed herself out of nowhere suddenly and flashed him a sweet smile. Grinning. Unfortunately, he couldn't get a better look even with his slowed perception, as the girl disappeared just as she appeared and revealed herself again to the evil Atsutsuki, who would continue to fly until he hit something. She kicked him in the chin, sending him flying up backwards. It was hearable as something cracked in his jaw after her kick. You shouldn't hit. She reappeared by Atsutsuki's side again, and this time she slammed him in the stomach so hard that his opponent could do nothing but groan in pain. Elderly Hago Romo couldn't believe his eyes and watched agape as the evil Atsutsuki was hit around like a rag doll. She finished by punching him in the face so hard that the eyeballs looked like they were going to pop out. Atsutsuki was sent far into space and only a star flashed off. He was hard won. Said girl wiped the absent sweat from her forehead. After a while, she appeared in front of him, while he could not yet utter a word. She offered a hand. Everything ok, old man. She said it in a kind tone, as if she were going to help the old man cross the street. It was as if the previous situation had not happened at all. Hago Romo. Sweat dropped. Hager Momo didn't even have time to think about how the girl survived in space without oxygen. Yes. Thank you, young lady. Hago Romo eyed the young girl suspiciously, having no idea that the person in front of him was hundreds of thousands of years older than him. No problem. The confrontation between them was quite awkward. The person in front of him looked like she wasn't very social, or if she hadn't talked to anyone in a long time. Silence occurred. So, my name is Rimuru. The Sage of Six Paths blinked. Hago Romo Atsutsuki. Chapter 2, Rimuru meets the shinobi. Sweet laughter and giggles filled the tavern as the some man and young girl drank alcohol together. However, the truth was that the roles were reversed, with the old man turning out to be a young cavalier next to her. And then, I accidentally blew up the planet when I actually wasn't looking where I flew. It was quite a hilarious scene as the customers stared in disbelief and big eyes as the little goddess beauty, who appeared to be no more than 13 years old, drank one big brew at a time. As people around them attempted to make some sense out of her words, Hago Romo just kept a awkward smile. Fortunately, most people ignored it as a childish fantasy. Haha. Hago Romo Atsutsuki, the legendary Sage of Six Paths, could feel a drop of sweat falling down his forehead as he listened to the young dimensional traveler's funny stories, as she called it. In reality, however, Hago Romo pitied the planets that stood in the way of the young goddess. Listening to her story, he could easily tell that the blue-haired child had a history of many such slip-ups and was a troublemaker one at that. Hagermawa was afraid, having seen her previous display of power, that the same thing would happen to the shinobi world, so he had to win the little devil girl's liking. Hell, he had just talked to someone who could defeat an Atsutsuki clan soldier barehanded. They were currently in a bar near the Land of Fire, and Hago Romo took on a more human form, using advanced henge and giving the young girl a slight tour around the world. Hago Romo has already convinced himself that he shouldn't mess with the devil. Flashback. Yo, Romo geezer. What are those black balls on your back following you? They look awesome and so cool. The unknown newcomer asked with stars in her eyes and childlike enthusiasm. Hago Romo replied, exasperated, these aren't just any ordinary balls. They are truth-seeking orbs of black chakra, with the power to turn whoever touches them into dust. And don't call me Romo geezer. He felt annoyed with the new nickname. Hago Romo was normally a very calm sage, but the girl behind him was driving him crazy. She watched and followed him, all the while asking about various things like his horns and super coat. Is that what it feels like when someone shares the emptiness of space with you? If so, he preferred to remain alone as he was until now. He even tried to go to the dimension between life and death, limbo. However, the little devil even there found him again by some miracle. Hago Romo could easily tell that there was a devil hiding behind that angelic facade. Don't get him wrong. He doesn't mean that Rimuru is an evil person, she's just cheeky. He also noticed that the girl was very unsocial, judging by her desire to strike up a conversation. It's like she hasn't had a talk with someone in centuries. Nope, Romo geezer suits you better, so can I touch those black balls? Please see. She was pleading. It could be compared to begging. With big shining honey-like eyes as if she was about to cry. Screw Hago Romo and his weakness for crying girls. Damn good heart. Rimuru-san, was it? Have you listened to me before? I said you can't touch them because once he turned towards her. His eyes widened in shock as he saw Rimuru spin the black orb on her finger like a basketball. What are you doing? Rimuru merely gave a mischievous smile. Just having fun, guess nothing to be stressed about. The Six Paths sage found it hard to believe that the figure in front of him didn't receive any damage from the destructive power. However, after a moment, he recalled Satsuki's fight from a few days ago. His questions awakened again. Who are you? No, rather what are you? Said girl flinched when he said the second part. Straight. So she is sensitive to talking about her origins. Well, it's normal when someone asks you the question what are you? Quite unkindly on my part I must admit. Me? Just an interdimensional traveler finding something interesting. Hago Romo could easily sense the energy coming out of the young devil thanks to his ability, but to his shock he could see that the person in front of him didn't even have a single drop of chakra. He first checked her. The girl was an enigma to him, a total unknown. He couldn't rather find out anything about her. Sometimes Rimuru answered questions related to herself as well as sometimes ignored them. He could confirm one thing though, Rimuru was not human as her appearance suggested. Returning to the situation, Rimuru was spinning the black orb of chakra like a toy. It would seem that it was just innocent playing around, but the blue-haired Nier analyzed its structure and unknown energy thoroughly. The sage of the Six Paths only now realized that the beautiful amber eyes had turned an inky red with strange shining circle-like pattern. Interesting. Her tone of speech changed to one of emotionlessness, while Hago Romo felt very uncomfortable staring deeper into the eyes that sucked him in. Is it some kind of Kekii Genkai? I can feel the immense threat and aura coming from those eyes. Old Satsuki scratched his beard. What are those eyes? I ask out of curiosity. She smiled. You could say they have multiple functions. Secrets remain unrevealed. After a while her eyes returned to normal bright honey. Multiple functions, huh? Why didn't you use any of your powers while fighting my enemy? I do not think it was because the opponent was too weak, or was that the reason? This was one of the questions he had been thinking about for quite a while. I'm kind of scared that my weakest attacks could lead to a cataclysm. The last time I used a water attack in space, I missed and it put out the sun. Ah ha ha ha, ha. She started laughing sheepishly, scratching her head. Would you mind showing me? Rimuru-san gave a big smile, showing her enthusiasm at the opportunity to show off her skills. Unfortunately, she can't recall any time in her life when someone praised her high. Hago Romo didn't even blink, and all he saw was a flash and he was in a completely different surrounding. Where are we? He asked, examining the place cautiously, looking for any danger. There is no need to be cautious. We're just in an asteroid field fairly close to your planet. So it was teleportation? Amazing. The girl definitely had intriguing skills in her. She could use powers other than chakra, but Hago Romo couldn't cleanly say what his was. Amber-eyed was able to completely erase her intentions, making it impossible for him to access her unknown power reserves. Now watch. He was snapped out of his thoughts by her voice as she pointed with her hand at one of the asteroids, much larger than the others. The legendary sage waited expectantly for the enigma to show its power. A pitch-black fire ignited in her hand as she said two words. Amaterasu. Hago Romo muttered to himself and compared the flames to the infamous Amaterasu that burned everything in its path. However, his ponderings were shattered when the black flame suddenly merged with the pure white flame, creating an incredible mixture of power. Even he in his form could feel the immense heat. The enigma however looked as if holding the flame in her hand was no problem at all. This only confirmed his belief that the person in front of him was far more dangerous than she looked. However, the atmosphere worsened as the power grew in her hand and the nearby asteroids began to melt. A powerful gale of black energy also began to form, raging around and destroying everything with more power than lightning. Hell flare. Burning power shot toward the largest asteroid and light filled the space. A black and white luminous barrier appeared around the asteroid, while the large rock itself began to disintegrate inside of it. Hago Romo lost all his colors cause of horror at the immense power Rimuru possessed and what she could do. But after a moment, A slight smile painted itself on his face as he remembered that the blue-haired girl didn't look like a person with ill intentions. We should teleport out. It's not over yet. The main part is still to come. Pardon. This is how the dumbfounded sage of six paths could respond. They appeared near the shinobi world and an intense burst of plasma could be seen in all directions. All the shinobi on Earth could watch the scene as if a star had just had a fresh explosion. Even with this distance of difference, Hagoromo still felt a wave of destruction wash through his hair for a moment. Fortunately, it was too far away to cause any damage. Hagoromo breathed with relief. I'm awesome, aren't I? The old sage definitely didn't want to come down on the bad side of the little devil, so of course the only thing he could do was nod head in agreement. I still remember once about 10,000 years ago I even managed to create a black hole with my power. She shared story proudly. Ho ho ho. He laughed, scratching his beard and watched her with ancient eyes, the information not yet processing in his head. Rimuru-san reminded him slightly of a child who needed more attention. Yes, the young girl with age just about 10,000 years. Wait a minute. Why are you so silent suddenly? Rimuru-san, could you repeat how old are you, my child? Hearing a question, she did a thinking pose and put one finger to her chin. I don't remember exactly. Last time I checked I had somewhere around 200,000. She started mumbling something under her breath and counting on her fingers. Yeah, as if she could count hundreds of thousands of years on her fingers. Hagoromo's sweat dropped. Another question, Rimuru-san. When exactly was this last time you are talking about? Maybe he should ask a more precise question. It wasn't that Rimuru's age mattered to him in any way, but in his mind he still thought of her as just a naive little girl with immense power. Can't remember. The Queen of Monsters stated. Hagoromo deadpanned. End of flashback. They had already left and were watching invisibly as evening fell on a certain village. From what Rimuru remembered, the old man next to her called it Konoha. Rimuru stared excitedly at Romogizer. Rimuru, however, was not looking at the human village and was rather interested in her Gramps story, which he told her about as well as she did the same before. The young girl started calling him Gramps because Hagoromo didn't mind. Whoa, so you're telling me that you divided a big ugly monster full of power into 9 parts and in addition, now the beasts have separate personalities and souls. Hagoromo nodded. Could you teach me how to create such things? Rimuru asked almost shyly. The sage of the six paths raised a brow questioningly. It is true that Rimuru once tried to create a creature with a soul like a newborn one, but all her creations were so fake. They had no specific personality and were more robotic for some reason. Sadly, there were things that even she was not yet able to do despite her infinite power. She needed more techniques. Hearing about the story from Hagoromo, new possibilities presented themselves to her. Imagine that I could then divide myself into 9 or even more parts. I would have made myself sisters and. Ha 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 ha. The idea seemed amusing to him. But no, oh no, Hagoromo definitely couldn't allow more little destructive devils to be created, especially in this shinobi world. Old man pondered for a moment and there was an uncomfortable silence for her that she couldn't bear. Please, I will do anything. Finally, Hagoromo crossed his arms as some thought flashed his mind. A sage smile was drawn on his face. Hearing that you are probably immortal as far as age is concerned, I would have a request for you to spend a few minutes on a certain task, or more like favor. When you do that, I will teach you my special techniques afterwards. Favor? Question marks appeared over her head as she tilted it cutely. Indeed. Look. Hagoromo pointed a finger at a young child who was in the arms of his older brother with raven hair. This is Suzuki Uchiha, one of my son's reincarnations. Your son's reincarnations? Rimuru was definitely confused by his statement. The child didn't seem like Gramps Hagoromo at all. However, she felt a strange sensation at the word reincarnation for some mysterious reason, but young beauty didn't think about it for long. There are 2 reincarnations, Ashura and Indra. Suzuki is reincarnation of Indra will have many difficulties ahead of him, but you can. Hey, are you even listening to me? Hagoromo saw that those eyes of hers had become active again and were looking into his son's reincarnation with serious expression. I am not interested in him. Hagoromo was shocked by the announcement and so he asked why. Could it be that those eyes had something to do with it? They could see something he couldn't? Indeed, I see clear reincarnation inside body, his energy resembles yours, but, there is a malice will hiding inside, something that is just waiting for a trigger to appear. This response made him sigh. Unbelievable that she could tell that just by looking. Hago Romo didn't tell her about how Indra was the one who started it all and the one who was lost to the dark side. Couldn't you guide him to the right path then? He asked with hope. Show me the second reincarnation. She ignored him and ordered. The sage of the six paths completely unaccustomed to orders. However, the next revelation caused Rimuru to be disappointed. He is not yet in this world. Why is that? Blue-haired asked as her glowing eyes pierced him. Because he is due to be born tonight, and his parents will die along with his birth. Rimuru hearing the news. Chapter 1. Rimuru wanders through the dimensions. We see a beautiful young girl with pale skin, slim figure, and small appearance traversing dimensions in space. She has bright blue